All right, everybody here. Welcome to another edition, our third edition of WeekCap with Clay D and Greer. And I'm on location here in New Orleans, Louisiana today for the Super Bowl. Well, Greer is in nice, sunny, warm Atlanta. I don't know. Is it sunny, warm Atlanta?
It
Not to,
is sunny and warm
not to be
Atlanta. We
bragging.
have this warm front coming through. It's 70 degrees here.
Oh, okay. It's 78 and it's humid.
Wow, wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
how is New Orleans? You're down there for the Super Bowl and those festivities. I keep seeing on social media that it's been a great week. Is that true?
Yeah, it has been a real good week. It's been a fast one for sure. I've been out here the past few days. Been going to a lot of events, a lot of panels, meeting a lot of folks, a lot of celebrities, athletes, former professional athletes and such. I've been staying at until last night. I've been staying at the Eagles team hotel where they're staying at. So I've been talking to a lot of their friends and families there and the players there. I got some pictures with them. I almost got Coach Nick Sirianni's last time he was having dinner, but it's been a crazy, crazy week.
Wow.
Hall of Famers, Heisman Trophy winners. We almost had a Tom Brady interaction, but literally almost had one at the Four Seasons next door, but his security had shut that down. And I almost had one with Jason Kelsey. Almost had one with JC Kelsey too, but they shut that down as well. So man, that would have been I was this close to having a
Wow.
Victor award with Tom, my favorite player of all time, Tom Brady. So I was crushed by that the most. And JC
Yeah.
Kelsey too, but it
Yeah,
ain't
I would have been
but
too. I know those security teams don't be playing, but I know you're getting after it, and it should be a good game tomorrow. Somebody told me the other day that I think it's down to like a 1 point spread or a 1 point difference
yeah.
now.
Yeah, we'll get to our predictions later on, but we have a lot
Yeah,
to discuss here. So, man, just
so
tell me,
much.
what are your thoughts on everything that's been going on in the world this past week? It looks like we're still having more play incidents since we met last week.
I know. I don't understand. I just don't know what's going on. It is a bit scary. I'll be getting on a plane in 2 weeks to go to a law school competition. And so I'm praying that everything goes smoothly with that and that we don't have any more incidents between now and then. And so I think probably what you're referring to for the viewers or the listeners out there is in Alaska, a small Alaska plane crashed earlier this week. I had 10 people on board. I believe at least three died. They have found that plane and are working on recovering and figuring out what happened there. But yeah, I don't know. Something needs to happen. I saw on the news, let's just get right into it. I saw on the news earlier this week that Elon Musk is going to somehow, or wants to somehow try to help the FAA or the transportation folks figure out air traffic control. I just am tired of him having his hands all over every aspect of the federal government, and he hasn't even been confirmed or gone through any process. And so, um, I'm sure we'll get to this as well with USAID, but to keep it on the planes for a second, I do think we need to really investigate and examine what's going on. Why is it that so many at this time are going down or having issues? And then I saw on social media earlier this week, I think it may have been a Japanese Airlines plane, ran into another airline on the runway as both planes were preparing to depart. And so, yeah. Excuse me.
Yeah,
I just think it's important to thank you. I think it's important to keep having these conversations about safety because it matters, and we shouldn't have people scared to travel.
absolutely. And I just woke up this morning too. There was a plane crash over in Sao Paulo, Brazil. You can fact check me in real time, but
Wow,
it's
I didn't
like,
realize
dang.
that.
Now, it's one of those things where are there more instances or are we just more aware to it now and we just have more access to information to these instances because of technology and such? It's almost kind of, not to make this weird broad comparison, but it's almost like when we started looking at police interactions or with misinteractions with persons of colors. Is it more going on now, or is it just the technology is just capturing it more? So not the best
Right.
comparisons, but it's the best I can come up with right now. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I'm feeling with these aviation incidences. That's the proper term to use it here. Like, are we just more keenly aware now because of what happened in DC or Philly, or is it really just something else going on? So I ponder about that.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite phrase these days, but both and. I think it can be both of those things. Because they say at least that there's never been an incident like that at Reagan National Airport. So I do think that one was unique. And then to have that Philadelphia plane go down basically in the middle of a neighborhood was also tragic. And so I think it's both. Will Smith said some of the reason a few years ago, some of the reason for why we see more of these interactions with police or misinteractions, as you said. I like that phrase or that word with folks of color is because everybody has a phone now and everybody's recording. And that's a good thing in many instances because that's one of the only reasons we got some measure of accountability in the George Floyd case because someone pulled out their phone and recorded. So I think that is part of it. I think you're right. And I do wonder, is it just that 2025 is the year for these things, or it's just all kind of colliding and it's just coincidental? It's very hard to know, but still, people are, I think, rightfully scared and wanting to make sure that their safety is going to be prioritized as they fly. I also saw something yesterday, and then we can move on from transportation. I saw something yesterday that somewhere in the United States there was a train
Yeah, I'm
crash
about to get to that. Yeah.
and it was on fire and people had to run for their lives. And so I think as we continue to mature or progress in the way that we do transportation here in the United States, it's important that we maintain safety as a high priority. And that does take regulation. Sometimes that takes the government going in and making sure that the people, constituents are being prioritized.
I definitely agree with you on that, Greer. It goes back to what I said last week when I was back home in North Carolina. I had said this is why elections matter. This is ultimately why elections have consequences because it is an elected official, it is a politician who appoints the head of the FAA or and the transportation secretary and who runs the NTSB and so on and so forth. So these things matter. So when you get competent people in office, it trickles down one way or another. Instead of having a guy who was on the real world be your be your transportation secretary, as I jokingly said seriously last week, this is what you get. And when you remove one piece here, another piece here, you take away this guardrail, anything in a split second can happen. If you're not overly maintaining or making sure things are up to par with safety standards, these things can result and these things can and unfortunately may or will can or will happen. It's just as simple
Right.
as that. So when folks say, I don't want to inject politics to this, everything is political. I've
That's
been
right.
saying that for years, even before this day and age, and you even said that once on the pulpit. Everything you remember that too, right? Everything is
Yes, I do.
political. It's just as simple as that. And we'll get to that later on when we talk about Trump and being at the Super Bowl, but everything is political. So when
Right. Well, I
you want to
wanted to
say out
ask you.
elections, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask you about that while we're on that topic with Sean Duffy, who is the current transportation secretary, and he got popular being on Real World. He was kind of inviting Elon Musk to take a look and help the FAA with their aviation systems because Elon Musk, it's true, he does have his toe in the water when it comes to space travel and that sort of thing. But still, I'm not sure he's qualified to help the government overhaul their air traffic control system. I wanted to ask you, what do you make of this conversation that a lot of folks on the political right are having that Trump and his folks have a quote mandate from the American people. And so since they won the election, they can do all of this. It seems to me a bit authoritarian, but they're saying they have a mandate to do this and it's democratic. Do you buy that?
Um, by letter of the law, you do have a mandate. The problem is this: if you're basing it off of overwhelmingly winning an election, which at the end of the day, you only won, you meaning Trump, only won the popular vote by a couple percentage points. So the whole idea was because it was an electoral blowout, that there's a mandate. Well, not necessarily so, when really it is 49% of the country that still ain't really feeling it. So this whole mandate idea, I do believe, and this is why I always got on Democrats over the past 10, 15 years for not having this type of iron fist when you get in office. Republicans, when they're in charge, they make sure that they let you know they're in charge. Always been
Right.
that way. Going back to Bush being in the White House and so forth. Even when they control Congress, even if they're not in the White House, when they're on Capitol Hill, they make sure they run things. State legislatures, the same thing. So they make sure they're known when they're the head or they're in charge of any level of the government. It's true. And Democrats, my constant critique, and we'll probably talk about this later with the DNC elections. You can't compromise with folks who don't want to compromise with you. So when
Right.
you had opportunities, yes, President Biden or now former President Biden did a lot of great things his final days in office and such. But while you're in there, same thing with Obama. When you're in control, do what you have to do. Don't be trying to compromise because the other side ain't gonna really compromise unless it's to their own interests.
Right.
That's
Right.
my feeling on that. What about you, Greer? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I agree with you. I think the Democrats at every level are generally soft, and they do this whole moral high ground thing, which may be the case, but Republicans go after what voters' wants and needs, and that's why they win so often. I think I mentioned this on this show, but I've mentioned it to you off camera, off mic, is Republicans, especially in North Carolina, at the federal level, they have the game plan down. They let the Democrats take the big cities, right? Raleigh, Charlotte, Greensboro, and then they go in and really hit those rural areas hard and reach out to the voters and seek out those voters' needs and give them a little plan on how to address those needs. And then they win the state because it's not just the big cities that vote in the elections. And so, in a diverse state like North Carolina, you need a diverse game plan that includes everyone, but also you need a game plan that is strategic and strong. And I just don't think the Democrats are doing that at the national level in particular. And as you mentioned, in many states. Now, I think in North Carolina, there has been a shift with the election of Anderson Clayton. And I think she does bring some energy to the state Democratic Party here or there in North Carolina. But I do think it's important, to your point, to really push and ask these Democrats at the federal level, why are y'all waiting so long to act? Why are you being so soft? I did want to talk about this briefly because I think some of the Democrats, including Maxine Waters and others, they went and tried to get into either USAID or another federal building. The Treasury, they had a press conference outside of the Treasury led by Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who I do think is strategic and strong. So, what do you make of these Democrats taking all of these, major actions or going on TV now, like a week after Elon Musk has already taken over stuff?
I don't have a problem necessarily with them going out and speaking out, but I wanted to be met with action. I don't want you just protesting. I want the protesting to be strategic. It's almost like when your pastor Jamal Bryant talked about a 40-day economic fast from places like Target and such. And I've been a little out of the national news bubble more than I typically am, only because of the Super Bowl work I'm doing here this week. But the thing is this: you have to be strategic in your protest. And this was my complaint about. I don't know if you remember Occupy Wall Street,
Hmm.
going back many years ago. Y'all complaining, but y'all ain't doing anything. There's no organization. There's no organizing ever other than protesting. We protest enough. I'm done protesting. I want to see some action. One
Right.
thing I will say about the other side being the right, they're more active instead of protesting, more often than not. More, I know recently you can make the argument that, but like especially January 6th, I don't really want to include that in here, but and even the COVID lockdowns, but more often than not, since I've been around, I don't see too many conservatives or Republican voters protesting much. I'm just saying,
Right.
I
And
don't.
yet, And yet they still have power, right? I think that's the key because, as you know, and I know that young folks and marginalized folks have always protested our own oppression. And sometimes protests can be helpful. But in this day and age, especially when we're shifting more toward technology and people are getting politicians are getting very strategic about the legislation they pass. Like you said, protesting is an action, right? But there may be more strategic actions that can be taken, especially when it comes to politics. Can we talk about that 40-day boycott of Target and what black folks need to do with their money
Yeah.
this year or these next 4 years to protest this anti-DEI backlash? What are your thoughts on my Atlanta pastor, as I call him, Dr. Jamal Bryant, advocating for a 40-day boycott of Target because Target rolled back its DEI policies. And he also listed off some other companies that are anti-DEI now, including the Walt Disney Company, McDonald's, Lowe's, and others. So, what do you think we should do about these companies? Do you agree with the idea of boycotting?
Um, I said this last week probably or the week before. The thing is this. It's hard to do it this day and age because we are so interconnected. If if I see if I don't even know if one everybody's gonna follow. That's just the whole thing. Yeah, we have to list up, but how many is that gonna creep in our minds? If I gotta run to the store, get some milk and $9 eggs, no pun intended. Or if I'm just making a quick run, am I gonna think, let me go to the local store around the corner? The local store might not be around the corner. A lot of times you have to keep in mind, even with technology, there's digital deserts, there's even food deserts or even clothing store deserts, all those type of things. So when we ask to do these things, I think it's just going to take more than just not buying. It's going to meet with the government affairs teams. That's why they exist. The lobbyists with these teams, meeting with these people, do what Reverend Sharpton or do what the National Urban League or NAACP will. That's how I feel. You need to contact them. I mean, it's one thing to just not purchase products, but it's just going to take much more of the effort because sometimes Target might be the only store around the corner from somebody. I'm
Right.
being straight up, and
It's true.
they might not have an alternative that's convenient to their needs, where it's driving or even affordability. Sometimes these corporate spaces, they do have the ability to make things cheaper if they choose to, compared to a local mom and pop who might necessarily be able to have a lower price because they have to pay overhead. So, and not to mention, Target does have a lot of black products. They work with black entrepreneurs and such, for better or for worse, whether how you feel about that. But so that's just my feeling on that. And even this week, speaking of the Super Bowl, Commissioner Roger Goodell had said in his press conference that DEI isn't going anywhere within the NFL. And I saw a lot of these boycotting lists that had some NFL teams listed there. I found that very interesting when a lot of your owners are arch conservatives and there's Trump supporters and Trump donors. So
Right.
I found that
Yeah.
very interesting that he said that in the State of the League address the other day, and all of that. So there's just too many parts involved. I like what Pastor Bryant was saying, and I didn't hear his full message in context. So if there's anything that I'm missing, definitely feel free to add in. But yeah, I like the idea of a fast, but it's going to take more than just that. It's a multi-pronged approach.
Totally. Yes, you took the words out of my mouth. It is a multi-pronged approach, and I was there that Sunday, and he did set it up well. He did tie it to scripture and talk about just the power of, like you said, active advocacy, having an active faith, sacrificing sometimes for the greater good, and for your community in particular, standing in solidarity with other marginalized folks. Because, as I think you mentioned last week, DEI doesn't just affect Black people, it also affects Latino and Latina folks. It affects disabled people. It affects military veterans. And so I do think that if you have the ability to boycott or fast, whichever word you want to use, from some of these companies, you should do so because the power of the black dollar is so strong. And so these companies will notice if we all take our money elsewhere and invest in, black products. And so that's important that we should be supporting at very high levels black owned businesses and products if we can. Your point is well taken about the corporate space, though. They do have the opportunity to make things cheaper. And to some folks, that appeals to them. And so I think in whatever we do here, we just need to be a united front. I do think it's important to get in touch, as we've been saying this whole show, with your local community, stay engaged, understand where your branch of the NAACP is or the National Urban League. One thing last week or 2 weeks ago that I did like, Clay, is Al Sharpton and some others got together and they did a buy-in. They went and bought a lot of products from Costco after Costco said we are going to support DEI. And so, yes, part of that was for show, but that also invested black dollars into Costco, and that was money that didn't go to Walmart that day. And so to do things in a strategic way, multi-pronged, get creative, but still we have to move forward as Black folks and resist this effort to take away our rights. And so I think that boycotting, as you and I both believe, it looks different. It looks differently today than it did in the 60s. It's tougher because integration. And while that is generally a good thing, it did diminish in some senses that power that the Black community had economically and even socially. And so, um, yes, I don't want to take any action that would harm workers, especially low wage workers. But these companies have so much money. At some point, they need to realize that they only have that money because of hardworking people who are not millionaires and billionaires. So we could go on a diatribe about this, but I did want to just address that. I know Pastor Brian and other folks in the faith community, like Al Sharpton, have said we need to do something to keep these companies in check. I think we need to continue brainstorming and acting along the way, especially using our words. I mean, we can continue talking about how harmful it is to roll back DEI. And so expanding that conversation and again, just trying our best to stay plugged in and charged up over these next 4 years is going to be key.
Most definitely for sure. Now, this going back to the whole Elon Musk thing. I don't know if you saw that Time magazine cover. It showed a picture of him,
I did,
the
yes.
desk. You know, they call him the buddy in chief or
Somebody, Clay, on news earlier, I think it was David Axelrod, has started referring to Elon Musk and then these 20-year-olds that he employs to do all this stuff, allegedly, as the Musketeers. I thought that was funny.
wow.
But go ahead.
I don't think this bromance or whatever you want to call it's gonna last. I mean, nothing with Trump lasts anyway. So
Right.
it's really only a matter of time before something's gonna happen between those two because
I agree. I
it
agree. I mean, what
we
do you
we've
make
seen
of
this
what
happen.
he's doing, though? I mean, he is literally seems to be that he has his hands in the U.S. Treasury and U.S. aid. I mean, he's dismantling that. That's going to cost millions of lives, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. This needs to be dealt with one way or another. Trump giving this much access, which is called like we see it, it's either by design or it's accidental. But I think he's just allowing it to happen. Simple as that. He made he brought him on board to help him win the election one way or another. Some folks think that they cheated by messing with machines. I don't necessarily buy into all that stuff. Um, that the thing is this. You got people on our side. We got to keep applying that pressure. This is why we can't rest. We can't sleep. Well, we should, but like I've been saying, we got to continue to stay engaged and activate because we don't control any branches of the government. Not the Supreme Court, not the Senate, not the House, and definitely not most state legislators in this country. So we have to work with what we got. It's not like we have Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House right now.
Right.
There you have it. But the USA, it's just been too much. Like literally, we never have to do show prep because the news writes itself.
Literally.
If this was the Harris administration, we would have to look up stuff right now.
Right.
Like we would
Right.
literally have to show prep. We never have to show prep as long as this guy's in office. That's just the case.
And I think for you and me, that's fine, right? Because we're still engaged, we're still educated. And I did like what you said there that we still have to rest, right? We still have to take care of ourselves in these times. But I think people need to understand how unprecedented this is, that every day it's something new. This guy is acting, Trump is acting like a king, and he's got Jasmine Crockett called him Trump's queen, but Elon Musk right beside him doing the doing
I got
this type of thing. And it's just not okay. And we've normalized it because it's Donald Trump and he rode down the escalator and he's got properties all over the world. And he's now talking about, I think we have time to talk about this, but wanting to take over Gaza and make it into a Riviera. I mean, he's just making news every day and it's not good news. It's news that is actually that if it comes to fruition, will lead to harm for people. So, I mean, what do you make of that? We've got hostages being returned. The Biden administration worked hard on those negotiations, and Trump is saying, yeah, okay, well, after all that, we're going to build a resort on Gaza, and any of those people that are trying to get back there, we'll just send them to another Middle Eastern country.
Yeah.
I
Shoot.
mean, is that not like colonization or ethnic
It
cleansing or
is. It
something?
is. It is. I've almost ran out of enough words to describe anything that he does. It's exactly what it is. It's colonization. It's he's going to change his mind on something. So he's going to do one thing one day and then reverse course the next day. Kind of like what he did with the freezing the federal aids and all that stuff. You know what? I changed my mind. Let's keep it. TikTok ban, which TikTok still ain't up because I can't re-download the app. FYI.
Man, I
That's
forgot.
why that's
Yeah.
why ain't no Super Bowl week content on my TikTok right now because of that reason. Just saying.
Wow.
So well, I mean, look, this man is going to change his mind whenever he feel like it, whatever best suits his needs. So at the end of the day, he is a shicey businessman. So yeah, building a resort in the Gaza Strip, it's right on brand with him. That's all I
Right.
got on that. And we've used every adjective to describe him by now. I mean, this is nothing
It's
new.
true.
That's just that. Um,
It's true.
Now as far as Jasmine Crockett, hmm, not the biggest fan of hers.
Okay. I'd
And
love to hear your thoughts. I'm a
oh,
pretty
okay.
big fan. I think sometimes, they say pick your moments, choose your moments. And so I think that she might be able to be more selective in her valid outrage. But I do like the way that she conducts herself still within those procedural lines at hearings. And I think she's one of the most effective communicators right now the Democratic Party has at the national level. But I know people have mixed views on her. So go ahead. What are yours?
Yeah, again, everything I always say is going to go back to are your words converting into action? It's
Mm,
going to create the viral moments that get you a whole segment on Rowan Martin show on why. Oh, Jasmine Crockett told somebody, oh, telling people off is good, but what are you going to do beyond that? It's
right.
starting to look like it's just for show after a bit. It's the way I feel sometimes about AOC. You know, my critique of AOC is do more than just talk, and she does do the work. So I'm going to give credit where credit's due, but I want to see these words convert to action. Otherwise, you just going to make a viral clip. We don't need social media clips. We need action. we
Right. So,
need
so
policy
for
action.
example, what type of action are you mean like legislative action
Yeah, yeah. When I
bills?
say that, I mean legislative action. Actually, seeing some putting the pedal to the metal. I mean, I can get really a lot more specifics, but I don't want to read or see she said this. Okay, but what was done as a result of that? And now granted, you can't do everything right now, especially when you don't have control of Congress.
Right.
I get all those things. At least try. I don't even care if you want to create articles of impeachment. At least try to do something.
Right. No,
I
I'm
just
with
don't
you
want to
on
hear
that.
that you're making another viral meme. I don't I'm
Right.
tired of seeing that.
I'm with you on that.
Memes
And I
ain't gonna,
do go ahead.
the memes ain't gonna it's not a vote. It ain't gonna put money in nobody's pocket. It ain't gonna do a lot of these things. So
Right.
that's just how I feel about that.
That's right. And I said this last night when I was talking to somebody, but it's almost like the Republicans of today have this silent killer mentality, right? They don't need, yeah, some of them do, like Nancy Mace and others, but they don't need Marjorie Taylor Greene. They don't need those viral moments. They're willing to just be quiet and do the work, right? And pass that legislation that really harms many Americans, especially marginalized folks. They go in with this surgical precision and they're dismantling rights and American norms that we've had for centuries. And so I think you're right. And I do give AOC credit as well that recently she has really been about not just talking, but action. I think a good example of that, if you'll remember from a few years ago, was Katie Porter, who always had that whiteboard in Congress and broke things down. But then she also would create and draft legislation along those same lines. And so that's what needs to happen. And maybe Jasmine Crockett is doing that. I do want to give her credit. I know she's younger. I know she's a black woman. I know she's worked hard to get to where she is. And so she may be doing this work, but hey, she needs to talk about it. She needs to market it because a lot of Americans have that same critique, I believe, which is that Democrats do a lot of talk and they have these viral moments, but I'm not seeing this. Translate into money in my pockets or better school opportunities for my kids or the list goes on. But should we talk about the Super Bowl and who's going to be there?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's definitely do that, especially since I'm on location too, and we got we got a good 8 minutes left. Let's just do that. So we didn't really get much in the last week because we were time constrained. But what do you I am going to only add the political side because it just makes the transition smoother. But what do you think about Trump being in attendance? He is going to be here in town tomorrow to become the first sitting president to attend the Super Bowl game, which is kind of wild to believe. I thought Reagan had did it at one point, or
Yeah, that is hard to
it would have
believe.
happened by now, but
Right.
apparently it hasn't. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I believe Dr. Jill Biden is going to be there as well. So
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
yes, she's a big Philly fan. I saw that earlier this week. So those competing narratives will be interesting. But obviously, Trump will dominate the news cycle. As you said, being the first sitting president to attend the Super Bowl, that is really hard to believe. Um, we know Trump likes football. He likes to do that hobnobbing. He likes to be up in the box. I don't know where he'll be tomorrow, but I'm assuming in a box somewhere. I don't know who his
He's going to
special
be
guest.
a guest of Gail Benson, who's the owner of the Saints, who I actually
Okay.
talked to today too at one event, but she was quickly escorted out by security after that one appearance that I saw her at. But yeah,
Okay. Wow. Okay. So that's good information to have, good knowledge to have. So he'll be there. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see who his special guests are. I'm sure
I'd
there'll be
be
some,
Elon.
might be Elon, might be JD Vance, might be somebody crazier. I think it'll be interesting, right? It adds a little bit of, I don't want to say flair because that's too um it is serious times that we're living in, and I do think that Trump has caused and will continue to cause a lot of damage to Americans. But I don't really go one way or the other. I hope and wish that the focus will remain on the game. We'll get into the predictions right at the very end, but I'm looking forward to a good game. It should be close. I want to see what those halftime commercials are like. Excuse me, I want to see what that halftime performance is like by Kendrick Lamar, SZA, and others. But I want to see what those commercials are like because um, my uncle actually works in advertising, and it's always interesting to see what companies do with that time. I haven't checked this year, but it's usually like $1 million or $2 million for just a 15-second spot during the Super Bowl. So these companies are paying bukus of money to advertise their products. So you got a lot of moving pieces, and I'm looking forward to a fun night tomorrow night.
Yeah, the commercials they ain't what they used to be, in my opinion. That's probably
You're
because
right. They're not. They're not.
okay, good. I don't want to sound like that old millennial talking. So I had to
No,
always
I was saying that same thing to some of my law school friends the other day. They're not what they used to be, but they're still
yeah.
ratcheted up for the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Now, as far as the halftime performance, I didn't agree with Kendrick Lamar being the headliner. I think it should have been Lil Wayne, but they meaning Jay-Z and whomever, they had their reasons. I felt it should have been someone New Orleans based, especially of high magnitude. And yeah, that's just my feelings on that. And apparently he's not going to be making no surprise appearance either. Another report, I'm very careful when I say I saw a report because I didn't fact check or double check. Taylor Swift might make a surprise appearance in this set performance. I that would be very interesting
Now that's
logistically.
interesting. We could have a whole show about the Grammys, but wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, only if you got a few more minutes, we can have a bonus section because my the brunch I'm going to 8 until like 11:30 local time here. So I mean, it's all up to you, but I just think that it's gonna be the most secure place. It's already secure enough in New Orleans. They have the military, state police, local police everywhere. Then you throw the Secret Service on top of that. And like I said, I couldn't even get into my hotel room yesterday without even showing a room key and everything. I'm at the Eagles Hotel too, and they have German Shepherds literally everywhere. They got metal detectors, and it's like you're going through the air to the airport, just in a
Right.
hotel, like literally.
Wow.
And we went over to how I went over to the memorial site where that New Year's attack was at on Bourbon Street. So I did take some video of that. And now you have Trump coming in, so it's the traffic is already was bad yesterday. Just even coming back over here at night, so it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be
Hmm.
crazy tomorrow. So, but as far as Trump being there, I'm not gonna get outraged. I mean, let him come if he wants to come. They
Right.
actually heard at the press conference at the hotel yesterday. What do you think about that? I don't think nothing. They ain't gonna fit my performance. Next question. That's basically what he said.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes, when asked, he goes, "Oh, I think it's great for the sitting president to come. It's gonna be so cool, cool, cool." And he got criticized on social media for that, um, because it's no secret that's a lot of people in Chiefs organizations. Maybe his wife is even a Trump supporter. That's not too confirmed, but you just gotta follow the pockets. The Hunts have donated to his campaign. I think that is public record. So if it's public record, you could speak on it. I mean, look, I don't expect everybody to think like Clay, D, and Greer. That's just how I operate. This is what I tell liberals and progressives all the time. This is also why I get kind of disgusted with people on our side. Not everybody is going to be a carbon copy of you. You're going
Right.
to
Right.
work with these people, go to school in your case with these people. That's just life. It's just like my mom always used to tell me out when I used to be more in the church. But she used to say, not everybody going to be a Christian outside those church doors. So you're going to have to deal with people not like you. So that's just how I view it. If I was consulting Patrick, I would have just said, "Hey, look, president's here. I'm focused on the game. I'm focused on having a great game." Just would have left it at that. I would have added
Yeah.
no extra layers or flavors to that, just to give people any information. I mean, whoever you voted for at the end of the day is your business. Although we wish people would vote more like us in some instances, but you can't expect everybody to. Um,
Right.
that's my feeling on that. But as far as a prediction, I
Yeah.
have
Let's do
the
that.
Chiefs repeating. I have a final score being 45 to 33, 45 to 35 Chiefs over the Eagles. What about you?
Okay. Wow. Wow. Man, this is tough. I'm gonna predict that the Eagles win. I'm gonna predict that they pull it off. That combination of Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. And I'll go with the final score. I think it'll be a little lower than that. I'm gonna go 35-32.
Okay. Okay.
Eagles over the Chiefs.
All right. They feel pretty good at Team Hotel, though. I will say that. I ain't a Eagles fan, but
They
they've been
better stay focused now.
I
Now, I've
know.
heard, let me ask you this in the time we have left, because I do have to run. Um, I've heard that there are a lot of Eagles fans down there. Like there's just green everywhere. Is that
Oh,
true?
yeah. Even at the Holiday Inn, that's where I'm at now. It's Eagles fans here. They they're everywhere, but they've been kind. They haven't been their typical jerk selves. They've been very respectable, classy. Yeah. Oh,
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap here, but thank you all for joining us right here on the Week Cap. This was episode 3.
All right. Yep. Episode 3.
We got more
Um,
coming. Good to
More
see you
coming.
and stay safe this
Absolutely, man.
weekend.
You too. We'll talk later.
All right. Peace. See you, everybody.